instruction with faculty. In this live session, Kent State University Library Director Mary Hricko and Fresno State doctoral student Raymond Pun will discuss strategies for improving the efficacy of information literacy instruction by using resources like Credo, and how to bring faculty into the loop so they too can positively impact student outcomes. You're sure to walk away with ideas on how to reduce library anxiety, replace outdated faculty misconceptions, and incorporate resources into your instruction. So without further ado, I'd now like to introduce our presenters, Mary and Ray. Take it away, Mary.
Hello, everyone, and I'd like to thank you for taking some time of your day to come and visit with us and listen to what we have to say about integrating effective instruction. I'd like to open it up a little bit by beginning with a poll to find out where everyone is located. So if we would move forward, I'd like to know, if you go to your poll, where's everyone located from? Just get a sense of our population today.
So first one's coming in from Texas. We got Texas, LA, Chicago, Tennessee, Arizona, Seattle. We've got a pretty wide spread. Do we have anyone outside the US? Honolulu. All right. PA, Delaware. It's looking great. Pretty widespread. Doesn't look like anyone international at the moment, but mostly in the US, but all over.
Okay.
Toronto. Oh yeah, we got a Toronto. There we go. Canada's representing.
All right. Okay. Well, we're well represented, and I'd like to get started. I am the library director at a regional campus of the Kent system, and I work with a transient faculty population. We have primarily adjunct faculty members at our campus, and so many times these individuals have a diversity of library skills and a diversity of understanding of how to use the library in their teaching and learning. And as the library director of the campus, I work with many of these individuals on building assignments and working on projects with the first year experience. And one of the things that I first noticed, I started, gathering some observations. And among these observations, I saw that, a lot of these research assignments, they did not even have listings of the correct resources that we had in the library. And I am a full professor at the campus, and many times I'm asked to do peer reviews. So when I was listening in these teaching sessions, some of the faculty were making references to how to use the library incorrectly. And even for online courses, when we were going through the online courses for review, we saw that myself and many of my librarians saw that there were errors in just the links and all sorts of resources that they were giving to the library. And I had a concern about the faculty's lack of understanding regarding library use, library policies. So, I wanted to know why this happened. So as I started gathering information by talking to different faculty, it seemed to me, and many of you who work closely with faculty, many faculty use the library and think they already know enough about how to use the library. They haven't kept up with the changes that are always, libraries are very dynamic, and they haven't kept up with the changes. Other faculty, they just build their assignments based on how they personally use the library. And you'll see this in they will tell you their favorite search engines or their favorite tools, and you'll see that embedded in the assignments that they give the students, because faculty, of course, are familiar with certain tools, so they build their assignments around that. Many faculty are more concerned with their tenure and their promotion, and so they don't have a lack of time to really develop some great library assignments for the students. And as I said earlier, many of them haven't had time to keep up with the changes and the dynamic, things that are happening in libraries, such as the inclusion of open education resources and finding material that would supplement their instruction. So what happens is, librarians are often tasked at having discussions, with faculty. And what I found, I started doing a research study looking at various books that are designed to help faculty teach. And out of, in this research that I'm doing, so far I'm now up to 1,000 books that I've gone through. I found like a total of, now this slide says 3 paragraphs, but I found a total of less than a chapter's worth of information about how to use the library for faculty. And many books that are specifically on how to teach in the first year experience, there's not much information on how to use the library for training faculty how to go about. There might be a line or two says go see the library. And so one of the questions that I would like each of you to consider as you get started on this is, how do your individual university academic units promote subject-specific library resources and their use in the unit newsletter or unit materials? Now, some universities and colleges have subject-specific librarians, but you want to think about how the unit presents the perspective of the library's use. We definitely are advocates, but how's the unit the advocate? Who initiates the discussion? And you want to start that dialogue through those information resources. So maybe if the biology department publishes a little newsletter, maybe you could put some information in there from the library. But this is a way to get the dialogue started for you to consider. It matters. And so, a lot of times people say, well, why? And so let's think about it. So there are many studies that I've found, and in one study, 39% of first-year students at 4-year colleges, they achieved the minimum score for proficiency on the assessments when they're coming in for information literacy. And so, despite the fact that students have, their social media and, information at their fingertips, they still do not know how to use information, how to find information, and how to put together for their assignments. And many of us know that students who don't have these skills, a lot of times they don't come to the library unless they're forced to do so, whether it be for assignment in class or for their first year experience course. And some of them don't come back. They go to the library for just that particular assignment, and then we don't see them. And, there's a lot of studies that show that, information literacy is key in those structured interactions in the first year. And if we look at, many of the first year courses, this is one of the learning objectives to help build a foundation so students understand how to do research for their later major intensive courses or their writing intensive classes. And I have found, just by my observations, is that when first year faculty lack information literacy skills, they impart that habit with their students. So if you have faculty who don't know how to use the library, they're going to construct assignments that lack the information regarding the library that can help their students complete the assignment. And so, in talking to some of the first year faculty, once you engage with them and show them how to use the library, they create better assignments that help the students. How we teach then becomes what we teach. I always say this to my faculty when I'm trying to encourage them to embrace engaging in library information literacy training with their students. So many of them, as you know, when you're working with faculty, they need reasons why they should do this. So first of all, the first thing that's on everybody's minds is student retention. I tell them that this activity will support academic success and student retention, particularly in their programs. We all know the first year experience sets the stage. There's numerous research studies that show freshman to sophomore student retention greatly depends on what happens in that first year. Library instruction will build students' confidence in knowing how to find material that supports their study, their supplemental instruction, and the completion of their assignments successfully. Also, too, there are numerous studies that show that giving and empowering students with an understanding of how to do research makes them more self-sufficient in their learning and their research. Students who receive library instruction as part of their course activities do receive higher grades, and they develop better information competency skills that are needed to be successful in the higher level courses. And finally, library research and study spaces often foster that community that students need that helps them with their student retention. Students make a lot of social connections in the library, social and thoughtful connections in the library, because when they're doing research together, whether it be for a group project, they start building the community that helps with student retention. We see this greatly with commuter students. And so there's a lot of research that backs this up. In addition, quality assurance in online education often has points of reference for how does the library play a role in student retention. I am a Higher Learning Commission reviewer, and there is a question of whether or not online instruction and conventional classroom training is provided to students, how that's provided, and what resources are provided to students. We look at how the library is integrated into teaching and learning online. And so involving the library in online course development is very important. Also, too, those institutions that use Quality Matters as a tenet for review of their online courses. Standard 7.3, which is learner support, specifically has mention of the role of the library and how it plays into the design of a course. And so even though 7.3, this was based on the 5th edition, the 6th edition, which has come out this early July, has more has expanded the material related to the library in terms of providing academic support. And so when we're looking at the creation of courses, or if you have the opportunity to embed yourself in the online course, start looking at how the library information literacy plan is being implemented. Does the instructor just simply put a link to the library, or is there a targeted assignment or a targeted strategy to help these online students learn how to use the library effectively for the assignments in this online course? So let's take a break here, and I'm curious in knowing, how do you teach information literacy to your first year students? I want to kind of get a sense of what type of training occurs at your place. How do you do it in the most way, All
right, it looks like we're getting the last couple of responses, Mary.
Okay. Now, I know that some of you might do it both ways, but I'm just curious to see if people do individualized sessions and so forth. Or,
so it looks like 60% do it in person and 38% do both, but very few, not even 1% go online, and 2% say not applicable. So it's a clear tie, but interesting to see no one does specifically just online.
I think one of the challenges is some of the LMS platforms make it difficult for librarians to embed themselves. And so this is important and pertinent to our discussion of finding a way, if you can't come in through as like a webinar or as a shared instructor, how do you get yourself into those fully integrated online courses if the students aren't coming to campus? We'll talk about this later on in the presentation. That's an interesting finding here just today, with our group. So one of the things that I would suggest to all of you who are engaged in this is to start creating an information literacy plan for undergraduate education at your institution. So when we look at this, I would say that the level 1 should be an orientation of sorts. You want to give students a sense of what the library is all about. You want to reduce the anxiety by, showing what services that they have, and just kind of give them a general awareness. And then, probably one of the most important elements in this orientation is to reinforce the ethics of gathering information. Many students are coming from environments where it was okay to copy and not cite. Some students don't understand how to use the library because maybe their school district had one library for several different buildings and Google was their library. So this first level of orientation is to kind of give students a sense of what an academic library is all about, but in a way that it doesn't overwhelm them. And so your first level 1, and within the whole year semester, level 1 might be just fall semester. How you approach this will be based upon the needs of your institution and the already existing programs that you might have placed with individual academic departments. The next level should obviously reinforce the basic skills that we want our students to gain. So library instruction pretty much follows the framework that we now have for identifying and finding and analyzing information. Thus, we can reinforce the skills of avoiding plagiarism and such. But these basic skills usually are done in orientation classes or subject area instructional classes, but it's a way for students to see and understand the elements in going through the process of finding information for their assignments. It is also important for faculty to be made aware of these processes as well, because while we are instructing students, we are oftentimes instructing the faculty on how to use the library in the class. The last level, and usually is a higher level, sometimes even reaching into the sophomore year of our students, is starting them on discipline-specific skills using discipline-specific library resources. At my university, each of the majors have a content area writing intensive course. And so there are certain databases and certain research tools and certain reference materials that we want the students to know how to use. There are also different citation styles. So if a student is in psychology, we want to make certain that that student really understands APA. In this year, we see a lot of, at least at my place, I see a lot of incidents in bad citation because students who only in their first year learned how to use MLA are now moving into a discipline-specific citation mode, and you'll see a lot of what I call creative citation, where it's a mix between APA and MLA and whatever way that students are coming. So this level transitions them to a higher level of information literacy skill that many of our faculty do not teach. or are equipped to teach. So we have to come up with ways to help them gain the advanced library skills that their faculty member, their instructor wants them to have. I always find it fascinating how faculty will come to me and say, well, they don't know APA. And I respond, well, what did you do in class to help them? And they're like, well, don't you teach that? So, we see in many instances, the disconnect here. So this is an area in which we want to, reinforce faculty to update their skills in using the library as well. And this merits their own research too, in addition to their teaching. So how do we develop an information literacy plan for faculty? Now I say for faculty because most of us who are listening in, we have developed a plan for students, but what have you done for faculty? Well, the first thing I would recommend is to start getting some data. And I would say the first group that you want to work with is your first year teaching cohort. Who teaches the first year courses at your campus? Another thing that you can look at is you can get a report of the courses that have the highest DF and withdrawal rates, DFW rates. Those are the courses that you could target for maybe spending some time with those faculty members who teach that courses to find ways in which the library can supplement instruction to reduce the amount of DFW rates in that class. You want to have a strong connection with those first year instructors. And so I would say start examining their course assignments and their materials. And you can find out these materials, whether you see it from the students or if you work with academic fairs, to kind of get a sense of the assignments these first year instructors are giving. By working with this group, you're laying out the foundation with the faculty of helping students to advance and to do well in these first year courses. Next, you want to start looking more closely, and you could break this down into little 60-minute seminars with the first year faculty. The first session could be, how's the library represented in your first year course? You could also then inform faculty. You'll have the faculty bring their syllabi to a workshop and work together on ideas about how to build in library integration. What can you do? You could organize a webinar with the individuals who teach online first year courses and see ways in which they have used the library in their online course. And then you could then talk about plagiarism and meet with these instructors to see how they address the policies in their class, how they use the library to help them, and what ways we can prevent plagiarism and unethical use of material together. So these are some workshops that you could do in a series. For level 2, I would recommend highly to look at this LMU checklist that I have. It gives an information literacy rubric by which you can evaluate assignments to determine whether or not they help students master information literacy skills. It's a great resource that I have used for my assignments, and I have used with faculty who create assignments. So it serves a purpose for dialoguing, because faculty evaluate their assignment, and then they'll come to the library and say, well, how can I fix this element of it? I often tell faculty, do your assignment. Faculty will then realize that we don't have those materials in the library, because they'll say, oh, well, how will my students do this assignment? I even have faculty give each other's assignments to do that involve library research. It's not only a community building way to see what everyone else is doing in class, but faculty come to understand that from a student's point of view, there might be problems with their assignment. Also, too, I often ask faculty, tell me what resources that you've used lately. And once I see their list, I'm able to see if they're keeping current with what we have available for them in their discipline to teach their students, and then shoot them my own list. So these are some discussions to start getting faculty involved with improving their basic skills of instruction. For the next level of the faculty plan, I meet with the specific disciplines, and I meet with all the instructors who teach discipline-specific writing intensive classes to see what type of writing assignments they're doing and how they're making use of the library to help these students in these specific courses. I also have made specific discipline library guides for these faculty related to many of their assignments. And in some cases, within the library guides that I have created, I've created library guides specific to the course that the faculty member is teaching. I work one-on-one with the faculty member. So for those online instructors, rather than just having a link to the library, they now have a library guide that is rich with resources that the faculty approves for the student to use to do the assignment. We actually build the assignment, and I'll show you some examples of this. This is an example of a guide that we used for our writing intensive class in psych. So I didn't go to the tabs, but the tabs will have books that the faculty member is interested for the students to use for the assignment, links and websites that the faculty member has approved of, all the psych databases, a link going over scholarly resources, a link to APA. So in essence, this library guide is a one-stop shop for this class. The faculty member links to the guide, and students have what they need. And it's structured in the way that helps the students learn how to use the library. And then it's also structured in a way so the faculty knows what resources the students are using. This next slide is an example of where we've actually built in the assignment and what databases the instructor wants the students to use. And so those of you who are using library guides can really be creative here and use the guides and send these guides to the faculty to work with them. And as you can see on this guide, a couple of the projects, there's 2 projects. And so what this faculty member has done is use the guide as a space for the assignment, so a working space. And this is very helpful to students who cannot come to the library because they're working. You know, a lot of times we think about online students, but there are many commuter students who work during times that they can't get to the library, do resources. So this is a great way to reach to them as well. Some other strategies to consider is to create handouts for faculty in their materials that update them with the new links or the new resources that you have. For this summer, I'm in the process of updating all of my library guides to include open access journals and links to open access materials within the discipline. OERs are new to faculty members, and so many of them don't know where to look. So I'm trying to find resources that will help them find discipline-specific OERs that they can use in their class as supplemental instruction. This also helps students who don't have the money for these materials to have some materials until they can find access to the books they need for their class. I also send media announcements through social media about what's new in the library or database of the week for people to look at and see. I create many subject-specific content, handouts and guides for faculty. And, you know, I make use of a lot of resources for faculty to have. I even, at one point, made bookmarkers of neat resources in the faculty members' discipline to distribute to them. I also showcase the Library of Faculty Involvement. One project that we did is, many of you are familiar with those READ posters that ALA sends out. I did reposters of all our faculty holding a book that they read or use or reflects their discipline, but at the same sense had some content and information related to their discipline on there, and we have that and do that. We also do a lot of faculty development series, building a library assignment. That proves to be a great time for people to upgrade their actual course assignments. So faculty sharing is great in those workshops because a lot of faculty get ideas from one another. And so what we've done even too is in our LMS system, we've put many of the assignments that faculty want to share. And so you have a model or a template to build from. Most of you who are familiar with Merlot research site, we've created our own little version of that locally where faculty could share. Some people put these kind of materials in their digital comments, but this is a great way for the library to get involved with helping faculty with their teaching and their research. We also have, we do an overview of new databases that the library has bought, and I actually do training of the faculty to show them what to do and some ways to help their students. And we always repeatedly do many sessions on plagiarism, and we do it in key points also in the semester, during midterms and right before finals. You want to communicate to faculty and, whoops, I just went a little bit, as often as you can to keep them updated. And so one of the good ways that I've seen is many people are creating actual library guides for faculty. And this is an example of one. So you could see the type of information that people are creating. I have created a faculty guide series, but here's another one that I think is very useful. And you see some of the items that they have included, including how to use the videos, DVDs. So you could get a lot of information. And if you do use live guides, I would highly recommend looking at the live guide community for ideas to help you figure out how to set up your page. You can also, too, with permission of the live guide creator, use already created library guides by linking to them within your guide as well. So you could borrow a lot of resources to help you out in that regard. You also want to list support. I have established a first-year learning community for faculty and staff to participate in finding ways to help build information literacy skills with students. And we try to target specific populations such as first-generation students and other students that are at risk. We also work with the academic and student services group because academic advisors are oftentimes the first people that students go to when they have a problem. So it's really important to include staff in your training and updating of the library because you don't know what information that they are given about the library that could be wrong. So you want to do some touch points with those first responders, as I call them, to make certain that they are relaying the information. I would also recommend highly to double check anything that might be linked to your library. A couple years back, I found one of the handouts that they were giving to people at a session for recruiting students had the wrong library link in it. And I would not have known that had I not picked it up because oftentimes campuses don't share each other's communication documents. And somebody who was putting it together, they put the wrong library link. So you want to check to see, what kind of information is going out and enlist other people who may be talking about the library to, just get an update with you as well. I am going so far as to creating library guides for some of these offices as well, just to have them have the information there quickly to them. Also to look at ways in which the library can participate in events. We have an undergraduate research symposium And so I tried to get the library involved in the students who are working on that project, as well as the various undergraduate research projects that come in through the different academic departments. Finally, you want to align your first-year program that involves the library with the university strategic plan. If you create a faculty information literacy plan and look at your university strategic plan, you can see very readily where it would fit in to support the faculty's teaching, learning, and research. So this could actually be one of the action elements that you use to integrate the library into the strategic plan effectively. The last question, I think this is our last question, is I would like to know, some of the things that you have done at your institutions regarding information literacy and information literacy building with your faculty.
And if anybody has answers to other, feel free to type that into the chat. We'd be curious to see what else you're doing. It looks like we're still getting a few more votes, Mary, and then we'll pass over the results. All right, so 43% went with create open house events, and then 26% went with other, so probably a variety of options. 20% with aligned to FYU library activities, and only 11% with a learning community. Some of the other answers we're getting is open house events for all faculty, creating a library website with integrated guides for specific subjects, a staff development day. So there are quite a few ideas out there.
Okay, so now I'm going to switch over and hand the baton to Ray, and he's going to speak more about specific disciplines.
Thank you, Mary. Hi, everyone. I'm Ray Pun, currently a doctoral student and a candidate later at the end of the year at Fresno State in educational leadership. And prior to that, as many of you might be familiar with my work, I worked at Fresno State as the first-year student success librarian, at New York University Shanghai as the research librarian, and at New York Public Library. And so a lot of the work I've been focusing on has really largely looked at building faculty outreach and student engagement, and how do you tie in into information literacy? How do you integrate that into the process? And so when I was a librarian at Fresno State, one of the key duties I had, which was really exciting, was working across the disciplines, working across with different programs, specifically in the first year learning communities to first year classes, writing, communication, STEM, and introductory classes, including general education, or otherwise known as GE. And because of that, there are a lot of freshmen, about 5,000 freshmen enrolled in all these different programs and classes. And as you know, Fresno State is a public research university, one of the 23 California state university systems, one of the largest in the country. And so what that means is we have to think about ways of scaling and making it sustainable, and also scaffolding. And part of what Mary had shared in terms of building that foundation into the work for first year, and so helping them launch their experiences, the students, going forward after the first year. So with that being said, I had that opportunity to work across the disciplines and really getting to meet the information needs of the faculty themselves. Like, what is it that they want, expect, and need for their students to learn information literacy? And so one of the area was really building the first year information literacy program. And prior to coming to Fresno State before, there were many different tutorials, programs, outreach, and workshops that a lot of colleagues were working on. And one of my interests was to bring in all the first year stakeholders, so those on campus who might be involved. So this might align nicely with what Mary said. It might be developing a information literacy program for faculty, but rather this was a focus group that involved stakeholders such as the first year writing instructor, the first year communication coordinator, the University One, or our first year seminar coordinator, and our writing center, and other colleagues from the library, and student affairs, folks who support a learning center or tutoring center and at-risk students, to come together and talk once a month to share ideas and information, obviously, give out flyers, share their assignments, talk about some of the key challenges. But the really great opportunity to have everyone come together is to talk about the library's role in sustaining and supporting information literacy throughout these courses in an interdisciplinary way, but also in mapping out the library's key services in supporting critical thinking and research and writing in those areas. So what we did was we were able to talk about the ACRL framework for information literacy and get their perspectives. What are their thoughts on some of these learning outcomes we've created, some of these library assignments, sharing them across this meeting space that we've had for about 2 years or so. And it was a great opportunity for them to learn from each other and get that information, build that rapport. So I recommend everyone to build that kind of workflow and in terms of introducing and getting faculty who do teach first year into this conversation where they are able to learn from each other and also really see the library's pivotal role in transforming information literacy for first year students today. And so one of the other key interesting area is building that kind of work. So as I was saying, it's important to really integrate information literacy to campus partners. So aside from the academic side, there's also the student affairs folks. So those folks are really great proponents in supporting student success and student retention. And one of my key roles was conducting outreach, attending their meetings, and holding workshops for them. And basically these workshops are drop-in workshops that focus on finding scholarly articles, to conducting data literacy research, to visual literacy, teaching different key skills. And of course, there's the plagiarism component. And why do we do this? Because I think there seems to be, from my experience, a large disconnect with student affairs folks and what we're doing in the library. And I think there's so much opportunity to continue building that and inviting them into that space where we have these conversations on information literacy for the first year curriculum. So for example, here are, whoops, this is quite a sensitive button here. This is some of the meetings we've had. These are some of the upcoming workshops. And by being a first year experience or student success librarian, you can create these workshops in conjunction to their workshops, whether it's about time management or improving reading comprehension. But the library itself can have workshops on research, especially during critical times when you know that students are conducting research for their papers. And these workshops are usually mandatory for those who are in special programs, such as Educational Opportunity Program or EOP, or if they are a Dreamer student, or they are in at risk and so forth, and they're required to attend these programs so that they're exposed to new opportunities and new ways to support their research and writing and curriculum. And so my role was to enter these workshops, give workshops, and also go to these meetings and really support my colleagues from the student affairs side. And it's really fun because then you get to really create new opportunities to teach different other workshops. And I have a colleague who teaches like mind mapping and so forth for them as well. So as Mary said, it's a great way to build rapport, I believe in one of her talks, to working closely with those who are at risk. And in addition to working with student affairs, I work closely in building information literacy skills to the first year STEM program, which is a grant-funded special learning community program targeting underrepresented and women students to be retained and being a STEM major. So what was interesting was that this was a 3-year initiative, and I started back in 2015 attending their meetings, talking to the STEM faculty who co-taught these workshops, about 150 first-year students. And a majority of, I should say, at Fresno State are, for first generation, are about 15,000. So that's quite a number. And many of them in this program are first generation, so they have no experience in this area or in research in general. So what was interesting was that the opportunity to work with the faculty, and they are not just necessarily one science program. They are either in chemistry, biology, geography, and psychology, which is under our sciences program. And we really got to talk interdisciplinary language, like what is information literacy in these areas and how different are they? What are the information needs assessments that the students need to conduct? And the topic focused on sustainability, specifically campus and water. And how do we introduce primary and secondary literature in the sciences? And I would come in and do multiple workshops, I think 3 or 4 in an embedded way. But even prior to that, I would come to their meetings. They would have a once-a-week meeting and talk to the instructional assistants and the faculty, and then just be on the same page, but showing them what assignments I'll be doing and whether the learning outcomes match their needs. And in overall, this one-year program for the first-year students culminated into this experience where they had to create a poster, and it would be displayed in the library, focusing on water, usually because we have a big drought issue in California, and the program itself is interested in water sustainability or campus sustainability. And the students would showcase their research there or in their classrooms and give talks. And it's a really great way to demonstrate the library support in terms of supporting the academic programs for first year in this context. Whether or not you actually get to teach a lot of these workshops is one thing, but if you can at least hold your spaces for the students to come in and share their information and share what they've accomplished and researched over time, that's also a really important consideration as well. And I would say the STEM faculty were really pleased to see how engaged the library is in supporting their effort to really bring in that STEM curriculum in the first year. And so one of the other ways we use Credo is, this is something I did early on, teaching the different vocabulary in water systems and in many of the workshops we do. So it's very scaffolded in that sense. So as I mentioned, we do a couple of workshops, about 2 to 3 in the fall, and then 2 or 3 in the spring. So it builds up to the symposium at the end. But in the beginning, we try to teach different concepts of the vocabulary in water systems. And Credo has this great mind mapping tool, as those who are subscribers might be familiar, and they loved it. The faculty loved this idea of creating a mind map for the students to work in groups and then think about what are the key terms and researching them. Because at this phase, in the beginning, in September, it's exploratory research. They're trying to figure out what questions they want to ask in water sustainability, what are the pertinent keywords in water systems. And so you can see here a couple of charts, the mind mapping charts, looking at different terminologies that they can do further research and then connecting it back to Fresno, the county, locally and on campus, to see what are the implications of groundwater or irrigation or the drought and so forth. So this was always a great way to show something visual that has a meaningful impact. And I wanted to mention here, one of my interests has always been putting information literacy in outreach programs. So they might mean creating a gamification program where students compete and play in games, but there's also, of course, information literacy or research involved. So this is sort of like, I look at it like sneaking in vegetables and like, you know, desserts or something. I mean, that's actually a bad example, but, you know, like the idea of like making students sort of get that information literacy skill by making it really fun and engaging. But in this context, I had created library games where students competed with each other during the International Game Day in November, and they had to research different databases like Credo and EBSCO, and then sort of figure out what happened in the stacks when they were doing research. So it helps them think more about what they're doing and how important the library can be to support their leisure activities. And then there's also a Wikipedia edit-a-thon. I collaborated with many different departments, including Women's Studies and our Cross-Cultural and Gender Center in March, to really showcase opportunities for students and the community and faculty to enhance and promote Wikipedia entries, especially getting participants from marginalized identities to be involved and make them better using library resources, as many of you might be familiar or might know about. So this way, in this context, we look at different Wikipedia entries, and it's an open drop-in workshop, and students come in, they can get extra credit and so forth, and then they could improve and enhance the entries by looking at the length and the content, and looking at what we have in reference materials and online databases like Credo, and making it better and more inclusive in that context. And it got so well prepared for these past few years that we were able to work closely with our several women's studies professors. A colleague of mine, Bang Bang, she is the women's studies librarian, so I collaborated with her to ensure that we were able to introduce Wikipedia entries and editing them into the classrooms for Women's Studies 101 classes. So that was really exciting and cool. So I wanted to add here, my point of the talk is to introduce some of the disciplinary approaches and what I've been doing. And I really enjoyed Mary's talk. And I wanted to emphasize some of these things that I do, which aligns nicely with what she had recommended as well, and which is really try to attend at department meetings or create a department meeting or a task force, sharing these resources and open workshops, and collaborating with student affairs. I think this is key, whether it's creating newsletters, posters, and marketing resources, so you can give it to them. So I have created some flyers and materials, and we have given it to them, and they've shared it with students, because obviously as one designated FYE librarian, we can't be everywhere at once. So giving those resources to them and having them pass along so the students can connect with you later is a great way, and making those touch points, because it's really important to ensure that the library's visibility is there and in the forefront of supporting student success. And as Mary said, designing library guides can be helpful as well, and looking at what's going on, especially the ones if you want to create for faculty, that would be interesting. And I like this idea of opening meetings with faculty and students and engaging and learning from their experiences. You can do this as a focus group. You can do this, as mentioned, as an open house. But there are different ways to manage this so that you can see what are their expectations, and you can also share what the library can do to support their needs, whether it's information literacy, whether it's user experience, or circulation or collection development. You can have focus on these different areas that might be of interest to them. And so I wanted to, sorry about that. I wanted to end with some of these recent articles I've been looking at. The first one by Shannon and Inglis, it's an open access publication, CRNL News. Really interesting to see their experiences in teaching the FYE. And then the last one by Caitlin Angel really looks at the different types of FYE librarians and what they've been doing to support FYE college students. She conducted a really great study. And this one is also an open access publication that you can also look into. And finally, the second one right there by Heller and Cassidy. This one is subscription-based, but it really looks at library anxiety and looking at how students manage their resources from a community college perspective. So for those who are interested in some of the literature that just came out recently, I would encourage you to look at these three and look at their bibliography. There's a lot of really great research they've cited as well in their literature review. So that's about it I wanted to share. Thank you for being here, for your time and attention as well.
Thank you, Ray, and thank you, Mary. A lot of content there, so I'm sure people found a lot of really useful tips. Just a few minutes left, so I'll go through some of the questions that we received. So, Mary, first question we had was, let me scroll to it. Does your library collect syllabi from the campus professors semester by semester so that the library staff know the assignments students will be working on?
Well, here's how I go about that. Our assistant dean does, because they have to turn it in for reviews. And so the students in that assistant dean's office will make copies of not the entire syllabus, but the assignment sheets for the syllabus. It helps me know what's coming up, and then it gives me a good sense. And then since we've been doing this for a while, some faculty, I send out a general missive and say, if you have an assignment that involves the library, please send it to me. So a lot of faculty members will do that too. So I try to gather it up, and then at faculty convocation at the beginning of the semester too, when faculty have their syllabus in hand, I make the rounds to make certain that I have it, because it's a way to organize, and then you could actually see by going through them who has like type assignments, and then you compare those faculty together as well. So it's a great resource to have on hand.
Great. And when you're teaching avoiding plagiarism, what types of things are you emphasizing? What's your approach?
Oh, there's so many great resources now on plagiarism. At our university, we have what's called plagiarism school. We treat it like traffic school. So if your instructor sends you to plagiarism school, we go over the assignment with the student so the student is able to revise the assignment for a grade rather than getting a failing grade. And we do that specifically with first-year students and first offending students. And so to prevent plagiarism, some of the activities that we do gamification with citation. I have individual library guides on citation. We have handouts that visually represent the citations, because a lot of times people explain citations in long, lengthy passages. Students need to see a visual. If you are using live guides, there are many examples of this, and Murdoch University Library has wonderful, wonderful library guides of citations in which they're using visual illustrations. And even if you type in like MLA citation as an image, you'll see a lot of great ways to present that to students, because we're teaching a visual culture. So any way that you can help students visualize it helps out for preventing strategies. And just going over the different aspects, a lot of students have problems with patch writing. They lift text and that, and so just to show them, even having a workshop on how to paraphrase can help students out very well. And just go over some of those things beyond handing the handouts too.
Great, and we have hit time, but I know we have a few more questions. So Mary and Ray both have their emails up on the screen, so you can feel free to email them, but we'll also pass on any specific questions for each presenter and see if we can get you some of those answers after our session. So I do want to thank everyone for joining us again today. Ray, if you could move to the next slide for me. Great. Just want to make everyone aware of our next session. So if you like today's session, please do come back for more Credo webinars. We have a great one coming up in September with the CEO of procon.org. If you don't know about Procon, they provide professionally researched pro, con, and related information on controversial issues. And they are a featured content inclusion within Credo's real-time reference feature. So we'll have a great session coming up then. We'll provide you with more information. And as we advised, we will be sending out the recording of today's session. So if you want to listen to it again or share with any of your colleagues, please do. Also, you'll be getting a short survey that pops up on your screen in a minute. Take it now if you have the time, and if not, that also will come up in your follow-up email. So thank you again, everyone, and a big thank you to Mary and Ray.